do a quick introduction of the Plant Protein Alliance. Can you see my screen, David?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So today we'll start with a quick introduction, then we'll have David and Roi's presentation, followed by a question and answer period and some closing remarks. And then there'll be time for you to meet everyone else who's attended in the breakout rooms. So the team here moderating is Donna Christensen, who's a communications specialist. She's new to the PPAA team. As well, we have Chris Glass, who is a marketing specialist with PPAA, and myself, Shannon. And I've been with PPAA since last January, and I really enjoy working with the organization and all the fantastic events that we put on. We cover all sorts of different areas of the plant protein world, and it's very interesting to see. Our special guests today are David Fielder and Roi, and they'll be introducing us to Plant Protein 101. A little bit about the Plant Protein Alliance for those who aren't familiar with us. We help to connect people from across the ecosystem. We're really here to help make this area successful. And we really want to see Canada become a leader in plant-based processing. We grow a lot of the raw product in Canada, so it makes sense for us to do the processing here rather than exporting it to other countries and then re-importing it for use. So we're working to facilitate the development of a diverse, profitable, and sustainable plant protein and plant ingredient processing industry. And we see that there's a huge opportunity for highly functioning value chains, state-of-the-art infrastructure, commercialized market-driven products, and making plant protein a key economic driver in the Alberta economy. And we've seen great growth so far. We're a relatively new nonprofit organization. And in 2019, we started out with a blast. We had 13 events and workshops with over 2,500 attendees. We've connected with several different people. One of our member surveys respondents said that they've been able to connect with several different people as a result of one of our PPAA conferences, which helped their business move forward. In one of the photos here, you'll see one of the successful companies and members of PPAA, Provision Analytics, on the far right there, with Eric Westblom, who won an award at the Alberta Tech Awards. So we're definitely seeing movement in the plant protein and food innovation space in Alberta. We have 2 different monthly newsletters that I highly recommend signing up for. And we'll post the link to the sign up page in the chat in a little bit. We cover different industry stories. We highlight the successes of our members, and we keep you up to date with the different industry events. As well, we depend on our membership, and we are looking to do a membership drive. And so if you sign up now as a PPAA member, you'll get an extra 3 months with the purchase of your annual membership. And we'll post the link to sign up for that as well in the chat. And now for a guest presentation. So David, I'll get you to share your screen now.
All right. Okay, how's that?
Looks good. Thanks, David.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. This morning, I'd like to give everybody a little bit of an introduction about plant-based proteins. I call this Plant-Based Proteins 101. And this is going to be the first of 3 webinars that the PPAA is going to be hosting over the next few weeks. And this is just the introduction. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank the PPAA for introducing me and inviting me here this afternoon to give this talk. What I'd like to cover off is understanding a little bit about the markets that we're seeing not only globally, but through national and regional scenes. Some of the consumer trends that we're seeing right now. a little bit about what protein's all about and what type of products you can put the plant proteins into, and also some interesting non-food uses. Near the end of the talk, I'll talk a little bit about some of the very basic processing of crops to obtain different protein ingredients. And this will be a good segue to the webinar that Trevor Busy is going to be giving next week on the scale-up component of processing. And then at the very end, I'd like to introduce a client of mine, Roi Wurgaft of Wurgaft Consulting, who we've worked with, and we'll have I'll ask him to talk a little bit about his company, and then I'll have a few questions for him before we wrap up the session. So why are plant-based proteins important right now? Essentially, the answer is that our future sources of protein to feed the global population cannot rest on just animal protein alone. And so it's not a case of trying to convert everybody from meat eaters to plant-based eaters, but there's obviously a nice mix of somewhere in between. Right now, we have a population of about 7.8 billion people on the planet right now, and it's hard to believe that the population is expected to grow by 30% in 30 years to an estimated 10 billion people. A lot of this will be seen through the middle class in the Asia Pacific area. And of course, you know, that food output or the global food output will have to grow significantly to feed those people. And so this slide just shows just a projected market by Mordant Intelligence. And you can see the Asia Pacific area in green is obviously the largest growth area for the plant protein market, followed by Europe and South America, and then followed up by North America and Africa. So plant-based proteins really are fundamental in addressing a lot of these food problems for really 4 specific areas. One, as I mentioned, is the global food security, and that animal protein certainly won't be able to keep up with the demand of protein that's required for the world. In terms of agriculture, it's a much more sustainable type of process requiring lower energy requirements. The amount of water use is somewhat more efficient than in an animal-based protein system. Some of the numbers have ranged anywhere from sort of 1.5 to 7 times the amount of water to raise 1 kilogram of meat compared to a plant protein. And depending on the type of crops that are being used, a number of them, especially the pulses, and that includes the peas, the beans, and the lentils, improve soil by absorbing nitrogen through the atmosphere and converting that to urea and nutrients for the plants itself. Certainly from a climate perspective, you know, we're all dealing with climate change right now, and to be able to conserve natural resources, whether that's water, land area, is certainly on a lot of people's minds. Lower greenhouse emissions are certainly well known in a plant-based protein model compared to an existing land model, or sorry, a meat animal product model. And the byproducts from plant-based processing can also lead to secondary products, waste streams that can be used in other industries. And then finally, in terms of our general health, as we'll see, the plant-based proteins have a number of nutritional benefits, not only for the protein, but also the fiber, the carbohydrates that are present, and also the minerals. For people that are gluten intolerant or lactose intolerant, there are benefits for using plant-based proteins, lower allergen risks, and the area of chronic disease prevention in terms of things like gastrointestinal diseases and cardiovascular diseases can certainly be benefited through the use of plant-based proteins in a diet. So the global protein story goes back many decades, but even as early back or as far back as just 6 years ago, there were really three main plant proteins in the commercial market, and those were from soy, wheat, and peas. Things like rice and potato proteins and even pea proteins were still a little bit on the horizon. And part of that was the reason that there was not a lot of flavor and taste profiles that these proteins provided. And this has certainly changed in a reasonably short period of time. And so the type of proteins that were available and the type of ingredients that were available were typically the soy protein isolates, the textured vegetable proteins, and there were still meat and or animal-based proteins such as the whey and the milk protein concentrates that were used in a wide range of products. So in terms of plant protein uses, it sort of can fall into three major categories. One, obviously, and the largest is the food category, where we are seeing dairy and meat alternatives and going into a wide range of products. Healthcare products such as nutritional and health supplements are very popular, as are natural health products and pharmaceuticals. And then following up with non-food uses, and these are areas of pet and animal healthcare, aquaculture uses. Personal care products are very popular, and also bioproducts. So just a quick snapshot of some of the areas where proteins can be used in cosmetics and personal care. Again, these are considered more value-added products, so they're higher up on the value chain. But proteins have always been used in cosmetics and personal hair care products, skincare products, and the like, because our skin is the largest organ of the body. And so by providing nutrients to the skin, we're able to alleviate a lot of skin problems and maintain and nourish the skin in beneficial ways. One can also then take proteins and modify them to produce peptides and modified proteins, and even going down as far as amino acids. And I'll talk about from a chemical structure standpoint how those are all linked. But those other ingredients are also finding themselves into cosmetic and personal care products, as well as our natural health products. So a lot of these trends are all coming from consumer demands and needs. And as I mentioned, it's not necessarily a desire to convert people to 100% plant-based products, but to have a healthy, balanced diet. And the term flexitarians is probably well understood by most of the listeners in the audience today. But consumers really are looking at healthy diets. And certainly in the last 12 months, we've seen fairly large growth of this area. Consumers are also in some regards interested in animal protein alternates from an environmental perspective. And so that is looking at, as we talked about, how much land is used, how much land has to be cleared or forests have to be cleared to allow beef and cattle to be grown and processed. Of course, clean labeling is also important to a lot of consumers these days. Consumers want to know where their ingredients are coming from, where their products are coming from, whether they're grown with clean water, clean soil, and certainly Canada has an abundance of that, but also interested in whether there's alternative ingredients or whether there's hormones in the products that they're consuming. And of course, there's changing taste preferences as the food scientists are developing a wide range of these protein ingredients from different plant sources. We're getting quite a wide range of new products entering the market, and the consumers tend to be flocking to this quite a bit. Some of the challenges, obviously, and historically, and these are changing almost by the day, are the look of the protein material itself. You know, does it look like a piece of cardboard? Does it taste like a piece of cardboard? Does it have any sort of flavor to it? And the use of plant-based proteins have typically given sort of negative attributes such as a beany taste, a grassy smell, depending on how the protein is processed, the pH, the temperature, different types of enzymes that are used. They could have a metallic or soapy taste. They could be either bitter or astringent. But a lot of these are changing now through a lot of development by food scientists, both here in the province and around the world. And so if we look beyond the burger, there are a lot of really good plant-based products that are good alternatives for egg products, various baked goods. The product on the top right-hand corner is an egg glaze, which is used for giving that nice golden color to various baked goods when they're cooked. Dairy alternatives are very strong, as we'll see in the next slide, as are fortified beverages and sports bars and drinks. Seafood alternatives are certainly up and coming, and certainly we'll see a lot of those in current grocery stores right now, but we'll see more of those in the future. And of course, if we look beyond the burger and out a little bit from the human food chain, pet foods are obviously a very important area to be able to use plant-based proteins in those regards, in those applications, and also in the area of aquaculture and fish food. So when I gave a talk last year, it was more along the lines of the question that I was asking was, is the plant-based proteins more of a hype, a consumer hype, or is it here to stay? And I think the numbers in this slide clearly show, or in the next few slides, clearly show that the market is definitely here to stay. If we look at sales just in 2019 in the world, milk alternative products have increased significantly to the point that they make up about 14% of the entire milk category. Plant-based yogurts have increased 31%, plant-based cheeses 18%, and creamers, which a lot of us who visit coffee shops account for 6% of the overall cream market, and had a growth of 34% just in 2019 alone. And so as these food scientists and the processors are developing better protein ingredients, these products are finding themselves into a wide range of products. In North America, it's interesting to note that in 2009, we really didn't have an alternate food or an alternate meat category. But in just a couple of years, we've had double-digit growth in sales. In 2019 alone, we had about 500 new plant-based products in North America. And you know, these products are now becoming certainly mainstream, as they are very easily obtainable in a lot of the fast food restaurants and the major restaurants in North America and worldwide. In Canada alone, we've seen about a 25% growth in meat and dairy alternatives. And so this trend will continue in the following years. And a lot of that success is really coming down to the types of protein products and ingredients that are being developed today. And one of the most attainable area is the pulse proteins. Canada is the largest exporter and grower of both peas and lentils. And these are areas that are seeing a lot of growth today because primarily these beans, peas, and lentils are very high in protein, have very good nutritional balance, and can be used for a wide range of different products. So apologies here, just got the button on the wrong page. In terms of the Canadian scene, I've just chosen 3 different groups. Obviously, we've heard a little bit about the Protein Product Alliance of Alberta, which was created in 2018 to really be a voice in Alberta regarding plant-based proteins. The Proteins Industry Canada is industry-led. have had federal support, and they really focus on investing collaboratively to accelerate the Canadian plant protein sector. And then we have other groups such as the Plant-Based Foods of Canada, which was launched a couple of years ago, trying to help support the growth of these new plant-based protein products. So do we have an opportunity for Alberta? And I think the overall answer is definitely yes. There is certainly a world demand for plant-based proteins. We have certainly a very strong agricultural sector in Alberta. We do grow quite a wide range of pulses and certainly across all of Western Canada. Our quality management systems are in place in terms of traceability for materials from the farm right through to the end product. And so that traceability is very important for products that are heading overseas. We have a well-developed export market. Transportation networks are certainly in place. But what's really important, and I think Shannon alluded to it before, is that we want to be able to focus on processing where the crops are grown, certainly here in the province. We have an internationally recognized food and incubation facilities in the province, which I'll talk about shortly. And certainly in a number of both the universities and the colleges, we have strong academic food science programs. And so a wide range of this value-added chain is very important for the success of growing this industry in the province, all the way from the farmers to the growers, to the seed cleaning plants, the ingredient suppliers, the primary and secondary processors, and the people that are actually selling the product at the consumer level. So the result would be an opportunity for us to develop our traditional raw commodity export market into a value-added sector. And so we're doing the processing here in the province where we can control the quality and the value of the product going back all the way down to the farmers. The consumers obviously are looking for locally produced products, and that's very important regardless of the region. Job creation is extremely important, especially in this day of COVID-19. Diversification of the agricultural sector, and also reduction of the environmental footprint. So the next couple of slides are just some of the pulse fractionation plants that are either in construction or in operation in Canada right now. When I gave a similar talk back in late 2019, the photographs were actually just renditions, architectural renditions of what the plants will look like. And it's very encouraging to see just a few months later that these photographs are actually pictures or images of facilities that are either in operation or in a good scale of construction. They're at a later scale of construction. A lot of these companies will be focused on collaborating with various food groups to grow their business. In 2020, in November, just this month, Ingredion, which is a very large food ingredient company, took a stake, a major 100% stake ownership in Verdient Foods. Roquette, which is based out of France, is producing their facility in Port-de-la-Prairie right now. And even with COVID-19, there seems to be not only strong markets, consumer markets for these products, but also growth in moving forward with plant-based proteins in Western Canada. And so this facility is slated to be open by the end of 2020. And this will be a fully fractionated facility where not only protein is produced, but starch, fiber, and some of the other components, which will go into other industries. Merit Foods, based out of Winnipeg, their facility, as you can see in this photograph, is coming along very nicely. And their plans are to open in the fourth quarter of 2020. And recently they received a capital investment through Bungie Foods of $30 million to assist in this growth in this whole sector. Locally, we have a company called Botanico, which is a very innovative company with technologies that are extremely broad, have focused primarily on cosmetics and personal care through their oleosome technologies, but now have focused on isolating various protein fractions, and recent studies through the locations in PEI, the University of PEI, and other facilities have suggested that canola proteins will have ideal nutritional benefits for the aquaculture feed industry. And so this is one area that will see lots of growth in the future. In Alberta, we have and within the government, we have the Food Processing Development Center. And of course, there's been a lot of development over the last few years with a wide range of different ingredients, including not only the peas and the beans and the lentils, but also other types of traditional protein sources from cereal grains. If anybody's interested, tomorrow the AOAC, the American Oil Cosmetics Society, has a free webinar on almonds, extraction and use of almond protein in various food ingredients. So if anybody's interested, please check the AOAC website and you can get some information about that. So at Leduc, at the Food Processing Development Center, a number of companies working with the food scientists and engineers have developed a wide range of products with a lot of different functionality, and a lot of these products have entered the food market. So the future of plant-based proteins will, I think, come from sort of four areas. One is the development of new plant proteins from currently untapped crops. These also could be secondary streams from processes that, for instance, are isolating starch or isolating oil from crops. And the protein right now is either going to animal feed or going to landfill. And perhaps this is a stream that allows us to go after, processors to go after new sources of protein. Because proteins have a wide range of different functionality, they can be blended and will be blended to improve the protein quality as well as the functionality as various products. Development of fermentation-derived plant proteins is certainly growing. So proteins from yeasts, from algae are growing because they can be produced in a very small footprint and produce a wide range of functionality that other plant-based proteins may or may not have. And of course, as I've alluded to a number of times throughout this presentation, this webinar, is that this market hasn't grown without all of the hard work of the food scientists that are currently developing and improving the texture, the mouthfeel, the taste profiles that allow these new food products to enter the marketplace and be accepted by the consumer. So the takeaway message that I think we can have from this webinar is that the world demand for pulses certainly outweigh the future supply. And Canada, Western Canada, and especially Alberta are all really positioned to be a leader in not only pulse production, but also pulse ingredients for the number of reasons that I've talked about. And Alberta should really be as competitive, if not more competitive, than any of the other provinces in attracting and developing a plant-based protein processing industry. And certainly by looking at the poll and the number of different people from various sectors in the province here and outside, I think that is certainly a testament to the interest and the opportunities that we have in the province moving forward. So I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes on just 2 or 3 slides talking about plant protein processing. And this is going to be essentially a segue to the webinar that will be given next week. So for those who are wondering about what protein's all about, protein is really a basic fundamental component for us. It exists as a structural component in plants. We're full of protein to the most part. If you look at our skin, it's based on collagen, which is a protein. Our hair, keratin, is a protein. And the proteins, depending on their shape and their molecular structure, will have a wide range of different functionality. And they're important because they are used in the production of things like enzymes, hormones, transportation systems, not only within our body, but within the plant. And so if we start at the very basic building blocks, we have amino acids. You can think of these as basic bricks. As you start cementing the bricks together, you produce peptides. They are a little larger. And then if you start combining these larger peptides together and introducing other components, such as minerals and so forth, you get a very interesting three-dimensional structure, which is biologically active, which is your protein. And so as you start with protein and you start chopping it down in size, then it essentially becomes more water soluble and gives you more opportunity for different functionality. And so when one isolates protein from different plant materials, you can modify it through heat, through pH, through enzymes, and that can give you quite a wide range of different functionality from a single plant source. And so in terms of processing crops for protein, traditionally protein was always sort of considered as a byproduct, where oil and starches were always very important. And nowadays there are processes which are specifically developed to isolate the protein, and notwithstanding that the starch and oils that may come from some plants can also be utilized in other industries. So essentially there's really two conventional methods for producing plant-based ingredients. One is a dry fractionation process, which includes it involves milling the peas or the beans or the lentils or the cereal grains once they've been cleaned and sorted. And then due to the difference in density between protein and starch, one can use air classification technology to enrich products called protein concentrates. And you can get flours which are higher in protein than if the whole grain or seed was milled in one shot. Wet extrusion is a process where you're now introducing that flour into water, you're adjusting pH and temperature, and you're extracting the protein out of the matrix and then purifying that and then drying the material to produce a high protein isolate, which can be used in a wide range of products. Both are quite different. There are different costs involved, and next week's webinar will go into that into detail. But this just essentially summarizes the dry fractionation from seeds through milling, through classification, to essentially produce two streams. One is protein rich and one is starch rich. And then the challenge of the producer producing these two fractions is to find a market for both the fiber and the starch byproducts. So in terms of value added, and that's always an important component, because right now when peas, beans, or seeds or cereal grains are exported overseas, they're considered a raw commodity ingredient and are relatively low on the value chain. By taking something like peas here and breaking it up into its fiber, its protein, its starch, and some of its other components, you can see that the protein makes up a very large percentage of the overall value of those peas. And so by fractionating peas into, or any of the legumes and cereal grains into their various components, the overall value of those ingredients far exceeds those of the raw material that it starts off with. And so just a quick summary here in wet versus dry fractionation. The dry obviously is a relatively inexpensive process compared to wet. It certainly has a lot lower energy consumption. The protein concentrates are not necessarily very high or as high as in a wet process. And so there may be limitations to the various applications that these can be used in. On the other hand, in a wet process, it's a lot more labor intensive, a lot more process equipment intensive, and certainly far more expensive than a dry process. But you can produce very high purity protein products. And in part, these will typically have much better attributes that can go into a wider range of food applications. So finally, this last slide just has a few different internet resources for Canadian plant-based products. These are certainly not all of them, but just a few of them that may be of interest to some of the listeners here. And on that note, I would certainly like to ask Shannon to let Roi Wurgaft enter the screen here and talk to us a little bit about plant-based proteins from an industry standpoint.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm putting the spotlight on Roi now.
Good. So good morning, Roi. I'd like to just listeners to Roi Wurgaft of Wurgaft Consulting. He's been one of our clients with the Bioindustrial Opportunities branch and the food processing branch since about 2015. And has been instrumental in developing new products and processes throughout the world. So on that note, I think Roi would be best to talk a little bit about his company and the type of products that he's been involved with. So Roi, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for the very interesting presentation. I'm always delighted to hear your explanation of the industry and how you see that. So nice to meet you. Yes, as David presented, I am working with the bioprocessing of Alberta for about 5 years now. My company is specialized, working with professional strategic partners and leading companies in a synergetic approach to explore and develop plant-based protein businesses in terms of operation and exploring new sources of raw materials and technologies, and also formulating food applications used plant-based proteins. My specific expertise is in the field of protein extraction technologies, from dry fractionation concentrates to highly purified isolates, through extrusions of meat analogs and high protein crisps for different applications. I am working on engineering, business modeling, operation training, marketing, technical marketing, strategic planning, and business development, and of course, research and development. These are some photos from various projects that I was involved, starting from commercialization of plant-based protein to lab scale production and so on. This is one slide that I wanted to emphasize some key factors for success commercialization of plant-based protein based on the experience that I gather over the years. So one very important, hold on. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep, we can hear
That's
you.
good.
Thank you.
Important factor is the raw material. Raw materials can start from, of course, pea, fava, soy, lentil, Each raw material has its own cost structures in terms of yield of growing the raw material, the traceability of where it was grown, how the quality of selecting the raw material is controlled. It's a very important factor to produce a high quality protein. The process design, if one wants to get into building a plant-based protein operation, it is very important to be able to select the right equipment, to have enough database that the process design is based on, to decide what level of automation, and to have understanding of what the quality assurance standards and the local regulations are in the place where the plant is being established. The third factor is the byproducts, especially for pulses like pea and lentil and fava. There is a lot of starch and hulls and fibers, which sometimes are actually are the majority of the composition of the seed. And if there is no solution to those byproducts that make sense both economically and logistically, the whole project can be failed economically. The fourth factor is the team, of course. A team of engaging into building a plant-based protein needs to have the capability, the agility, the skilled, the experience, and of course to be fully engaged in the specific project. And the last key factor that in my experience, of course, it's the marketing and the product quality, which is actually one of the most important. As time goes, there will be more and more protein in the market, and product proposition with a high quality and the ability to build a strategic marketing and pricing policy during the establishment of the go-to-market strategy is very important. So this is about it. I did a lot of work with David, and I must say that both the bioindustrial processing unit in Leduc and also in Edmonton are having quite a lot of the ability to mimic and to illustrate large-scale plant-based protein fractionation capabilities and technologies. And over the years, I found it as actually one of the best places in the world to produce article materials that are very similar to what a very large plant can produce.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this point, I would like to open up the floor for any questions. So if you have any questions for either of our two guests today or anybody on the PPAA team here, please put them in the chat line and I will make sure they get answered. We have about 5 minutes for this, and then we're going to move into our breakout session as well. So are there any questions from anybody on the webinar today? I know there's somebody going to be brave to enter in the first question. Let me just see here. So I have a question for you, David. It's not being asked here, but I see a great deal of people from different governments. Oh, there are some coming in here. So what would be some of the infrastructure requirements for a facility, in your opinion?
Okay, well, I certainly don't want to take away from Trevor Pizzi's talk next week, which I would certainly recommend the participant to go and watch. It's very very enlightening. But some of the infrastructure obviously would look at what sort of utility you have in a certain area. What is the actual footprint of that facility going to look like? Whether there's transportation links, whether it's rail or road, to get not only your raw materials in to the facility, but also to get finished product out. Also, how you handle your wastewater materials, and certainly in certain areas in the province, the use of water and the use of and treatment of wastewater is very important. So I would probably defer to Trevor's presentation next week for that detailed information.
Okay, and let me see here. Shannon has a couple of questions, but I'm going to go to Gary's first. Are you seeing facilities develop in Alberta? Are there cogen CHP opportunities for power and heat here?
That's probably not an area of my expertise, but I'll certainly be able to link that person's question or that person with some people within our facility that might have some good answers for them.
Okay, excellent. Sophia's asking, what are the costs associated with researching protein extraction research?
Well, it depends, and that's probably a little bit of a plug that I can now just talk a little bit about the food and bioprocessing branch, which I belong to. This is under the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, and our mandate is really to assist companies to develop and grow their business through new product and new process development. So the government's mandate, our mandate, is really in the area of job creation. We want to diversify the agricultural section or sector, and we want to maximize value through the fractionation processing scenario that allows the production and development of new value-added products. We also have not only technical and engineering expertise, but also business development officers that can help our clients in terms of market access, discussion of funding, networking within the province and outside the province. And so, as Roi had mentioned, the Food Processing Development Center is situated in Leduc, which focuses on the food processing side of things, while the Bioindustrial Opportunities section here in Edmonton focuses on non-food uses. But of course, plant protein can be used in both of those type of sectors and those applications. And both have laboratories and pilot plants at both of those facilities. So we operate in a fee-for-service model. Companies would come to us and say, we would like you to assist us in developing a process or a product. A scientist or engineer would be assigned to that company. We would enter into a client service agreement, and then we would put a program or a research program or an applied research program together so that we try and meet the goals and the objectives of that client.
Okay. Does the overall protein content differ in same crop grown in Alberta versus southern regions?
Typically, oil, protein, and starch will have a range. And these ranges will be fairly tight in as much that if crop is grown in northern Alberta versus southern Alberta, there will be a little bit of variation, but it won't be huge. It won't be like a secondary metabolite, such as an antioxidant, for instance, or a pigment that can change orders of magnitude depending on where it's grown and under what environmental conditions. But certainly some of the growers that may be present, some of the farmers that may be present, certainly would have a much better answer to that. But I would say generally there will be a range. It could be a range from say 24 to 30%, but it typically won't go outside that sort of range depending on what plant you're talking about, what crop you're talking about.
Okay, there's a couple more minutes for questions. I only have about 2 more minutes, but what perspective on co-packer abilities and capabilities within finished goods within Alberta?
Okay, again, that's just falling a little outside of the food processing area. So I'd certainly be I'd be more than happy to provide some additional information offline to that reader. But other than the food bioprocessing branch, which has a development center neighboring that facility or butted onto that facility, is industrial incubator, which allows companies to rent a specific bay where they can bring in their equipment and their own materials to do processing on a small scale until such time as that they have the ability to build their own facility and grow.
Okay, and the last 2 questions from the Olson family, that you alluded to the fact that not all proteins are created equal. What are the attributes of a high quality protein, and what crop is closest to this?
Well, that's a bit of a tough one, because when it comes to proteins, it can be a wide range of crops. We talked about pulses and legumes. We've also talked about cereal grains and oil seeds, and going into some very unusual or types of materials such as yeast and algae, which are becoming more important. Now, each of these will have a range of different proteins and different nutritional qualities. Some essential amino acids may be missing from some of these protein sources. But on the other hand, some of these protein sources will have much better applications for certain things. And an example of this would be certain proteins, plant proteins, will be good for the beverage market because they have a different taste profile, they have a different solubility profile. Others will be better in baking goods, alternative meats, and so forth. So as you saw in one of the slides, producers are now starting to use mixed groups of plant proteins to give a very well-rounded set of functionality used for different applications.
Okay, so yeah, not that one silver bullet just yet, eh?
Not just yet.
We are out of time for questions, so sorry, Mike, I didn't get to your question there, but hopefully we'll have a chance to ask it in the breakout rooms. So I'm going to get Shannon to open those up. This is an opportunity for us to have a little bit more intimate conversation and to do a little bit of networking. So please don't be shy once you go in there. Introduce yourself, turn your cameras on, say hello, and we'll go from there. So I will see you in the breakout rooms.
As a reminder, we'll be having Fractionation 101 and Financing 101. So each week is a different event. If you'd love to continue the conversation, please join us there. And we'll be sending out a post-event survey. Let us know what you think, what you would like to see changed. We are new to this virtual platform way of doing events. So we love your feedback. We want to improve every time. If you'd like to learn more, there's some links here for Wurgaft and alberta.ca. As well, we'll send out an email after with the contact information for both of our speakers. And the video recording will be posted on PPAA.ca within the next few days. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you. Bye.